Hello everyone, Roy Littman with the Flagstaff Fire Department. For today's Tricks of the Trade video, we're going to be covering the Bowline knot. Bowline is my favorite knot in the world. It's very strong, it's very easy to tie, it's very easy to untie after being loaded. If I were forced to choose only one knot to use for the rest of my life, it would be the Bowline. We're going to then progress that into the double longtail Bowline, which is more specific for our TRT crew. It's the knot we use to tie the red line and the blue line to the main attachment ring on our litter when we're doing high angle scenarios. So we'll be progressing into that, and hope you enjoy the video. Okay, first of all, whenever practicing with the Bowline, I always like to practice around or through something. The Bowline would never be used to tie an open air bite. If for just making a bite in the rope to attach to something else with a carabiner, you would use the figure 8 on a bite. So every time we practice a Bowline, let's practice around or through something. So again, this is the system that I like to use that works for me. I do it the same every time. If you tie a knot out the same every time, you know it's right. I put the tail in my right hand and go through or around my anchor and transfer the tail to my left hand. Again, even if you're upside down, underwater, blindfolded in a snowstorm, there's no reason you can't do it the same every time. So I have the tail in my left hand, about 12 to 14 inches. I make a loop with the right side of the rope, or the standing part. The loop is facing my tail, so you can see the loop right here is facing the tail, and the standing part of the rope is on top. The standing part is all this. It is on top of my loop. Then the end of my tail, or the rabbit, goes down through that loop, comes back up and over and around that tree, all the way around to where you come back up through that loop. And you now have a finished Bowline. The couple things to look for to make sure it's a finished Bowline is obviously the look. It's a classic look. The tail is on the inside of the bite, not coming out the outside. And it is facing the anchor. That's your finished Bowline. Okay, so we're gonna start progressing into the double longtail Bowline. Again, the double longtail Bowline is a Bowline with a really long tail using 2 ropes. So for the progression, we're just gonna practice the longtail Bowline with 1 rope before we move on. So we come through our anchor, and this is really the only difference in this knot is you pull an entire yo and a half, about a yo and a half of rope for your tail. So you have all this tail. Everything from here is exactly the same. We make our loop on our right side. Kind of have to hold that steady on your fingers to get to the end of your tail. You bring your rabbit down through the hole just like before, but you want to pull it all the way through because you want the finished knot close to your anchor, or we're assuming this is the ring, or we're pretending this is the ring on our litter. So we're still come up and over that tree, all the way around and back up through to where your finished knot is still the exact same finished Bowline with all this tail that becomes one of your belays on your litter. Here we go. So double longtail Bowline is the same thing we just did with 1 rope, but now we're gonna do it with 2 ropes. So in this case, we have our red line and our blue line. Obviously, you start with the tails in the same place. Come through your anchor, or again, we're pretending this is the ring on our litter assembly. You take your yo and a half for your tail. And just at this point, as far as in your hands, just pretend like this is just 1 big rope. So you make your loop on the right side, standing part on top. Hold it with your fingers to find the end of your tail. Both tails go down through that hole. Pull it all the way through to make sure your knot ends up close to the ring. We come up and over the tree again. And back up through that hole. And pull it all the way through. The only tricky part here is you kind of have to spend a minute and clean this up and make sure that these are all making the corners smoothly and not crossing over each other too much. But that is a pretty good double longtail Bowline right there. And then these 2 tails get figure eights on bites tied in them. One belay goes to the victim, one belay goes to the rescuer. That's it. Okay, so that's it for the bowline and the double longtail bowline. I want to emphasize that the method I showed how to tie this knot is just one method. As you all know, there's a lot of different ways to achieve each individual knot. If you have a system that works for you really well already, continue using it and practice it. If you need more training with this knot, or this knot does give you trouble, then try this method and see if it works for you. And as you all know, ropes and knots are a perishable skill in the fire service, so I encourage all of you to keep up on your ropes and knot skills. Hope you all enjoyed the video. Stay safe.